Hello and welcome to Principles of Macroeconomics. This is Module 4.1c, and today we're going to be talking about the time value of money. So when you think about it, money today is more valuable than the same amount of money in the future. Now, if I said I'm going to give you $500 today, or I'm going to give you $500 in 5 years, which would you choose? Well, you should say $500 today. Why is that? Well, because you could take that $500 and put it into an interest-bearing asset and gain interest income over the next 5 years. By doing so, that $500 is actually worth more than $500 in 5 years, because you have to also take into account all of the interest that you would have gained over the course of the 5 years. So in this segment, we're going to be talking about exactly how we can calculate what that value of money is when we compound interest over the course of time so that we can compare value of money today to value of money in the future. So the way that we can look at the time value of money is in two ways. First, through the present value, and secondly, through the future value. When we look at the present value formula, as you can see here, it's taking the future value and dividing it by 1 plus the interest rate, or R, raised to the number of years. What this is telling us is how much is money in the future worth today if we discount at interest rates. So it is trying to compare, if we look over time, how much money would the future value be worth today? The second formula that we use is the future value formula. And this is telling us how much would the money that we have today be worth in the future if we take into account the interest that you could gain on it. So the future value is going to be equal to the present value of money multiplied by 1 plus the interest rate raised to the number of years. When we're looking at present value and future value, we're assuming that we don't necessarily have inflation and that interest rates stay constant over the period of time. Of course, this is not always the truth and not always realistic, but it helps us analyze the model accurately. So let's work through a couple of examples so that we can really solidify our understanding of present value and future value. Feel free to pause the video and work on it first yourself, and then join me again so that you can see the answer and I can explain it in greater detail. So in this example, let's suppose that you receive $100 today and you put it in a bank where you can gain 5% interest. What is that money going to be worth in 10 years? So what this is telling us is that the present value is $100, the interest rate is 5%, and the number of years that the interest is going to compound is going to be 10 years. So very simply, we're going to be able to use the future value formula here and calculate how much is that $100 going to be worth in 10 years. So we plug in our numbers and we see that the future value of $100 at interest rates of 5% is going to be $163. So in other words, what this tells us is that you should be indifferent between receiving $100 today or $163 in 10 years because they're going to be worth the same to you. Now, what if we have a situation where you're 20 years old, Grandma says, when you turn 25, I'm going to give you $500. How much is that $500 in 5 years worth to you today if interest rates are at 10%? So here we're using our present value formula. Specifically, we're trying to figure out how much is $500 in 5 years worth to you today. So we simply use our formula. The future value is 500, the interest rate is 10%, and the number of years is going to be 5. Plugging in our numbers, we see that $500 in 5 years is worth $310 today. In other words, you would be indifferent between receiving $310 from your grandma today or receiving $500 from her in 5 years if interest rates are at 10%. So what have we learned in this segment thus far? Well, we've learned about this idea of the time value of money. It's telling us that the value of money today is not the same as the value of money in the future. We need to take into account the interest rate, and the interest rate reflects the opportunity cost of what we could do with our money if we put it into an interest-bearing form. So we need to adjust for the interest income that we could gain on our money to be able to compare the value of money today to the value of money in the future. Thanks so much for joining me in Module 4.1C.